And not to be outdone, the state of Mississippi was the second state to legalize bare knuckle boxing. Give it up for Commissioner Mr. John Lewis. The inventor of the bare knuckle boxing championship squared circle, he is Mr. Gary Grant. '18's Bare Knuckle Boxing Hall of Fame's Promoter of the Year and mastermind behind today's #1 bare knuckle boxing promotion. Here he is, Mr. Dave Feldman. Three of the greatest referees in the business are also here today, representing open guard Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Mr. Wayne Spinola. And you've seen him on Ultimate Fighting Championship, keeping order in the octagon. Here he is, Mr. Big Dan Mirgliotta. And you have certainly seen him on HBO, Showtime, NBC, USA, ESPN, and pay-per-view. Over 900 fights over 30 years, including Mike Tyson's 50th win. Last year he officiated the first ever legal bare knuckle boxing match in U.S. history. Give it up for our good friend, Mr. Bill Clancy. And yes, there are actual bare knuckle fighters in the room today. So let's get to them. Star of and current fan favorite of bare knuckle fighting championships from Pennsylvania, he is Travis the Animal Thompson. She is the #1 ranked. When they say stand, they meant it. Stand. She is the #1 ranked Police Gazette American featherweight contender. She's all the way from Michigan. Give it up for Sheena Starr. And some real history in the house. This is the first Police Gazette American heavyweight champion in 136 years to win the title. Give it up for Chicago's own A.J. Adams. She's known as the First Lady of Bare Knuckle Boxing, and she is Belfast sweetheart. Give it up for the incomparable Judy Burt. And the president of both the Police Gazette Boxing Corporation and Bare Knuckle Boxing Hall of Fame. He's your friend. He's my friend. Give it up for Mr. Scott Burt.
Thank you very much, Chris. Thank you very much. I just can't stop smiling. How far have we come in these last 10 years, and especially the last couple? I was thinking about last night at 4 o'clock when I was preparing, or this morning at 4 o'clock when I was preparing some things. If we had a map up there and had a dot where everybody has been from the United States and around the world, they'd be all over the place. They have come to Belfast, New York. And why Belfast? I think it bears repeating. Some of you haven't heard it before. In 1882, John L. Sullivan wins the American Championship in 9 rounds. He beats Paddy Ryan down where? Mississippi City, in Mississippi. 3 miles from where we currently fight at the Coliseum. The fight went nine rounds. He won the fight. He comes back to. By the way, it was such an important fight that in disguise there was Jesse and Frank James. They came to the fight. They risked everything to just see that fight. There was 3,000 people in attendance there at $15 a person in 1889 money. So he wins. He comes back to Harry Hills in New York City, and he's sitting there having a beer and celebrating. I don't know of any bare knuckle boxers that do that, but we have a few, I guess. He was celebrating, and Richard K. Fox, the inventor of the belt and the Police Gazette, the Police Gazette belt, was sitting at another table, and he asked the waitress to have John L. Sullivan come over. He wanted to congratulate him, and the waitress said, went over and told him, and Sullivan used some very choice words. He wasn't going to leave his friends to meet with any, well, we are in a church, any gosh darn old reporter. Wasn't going to do that. He said it so loud that it insulted Fox. Fox went forever to try to find somebody to beat him. Couldn't do it. Then in 1886, he finally found somebody in Jake Kilrain. Jake Kilrain and Jem Smith fought to a 106-round draw. But he liked how Kilrain fought, so he chose him. He challenged Sullivan. Sullivan said no, he's not my caliber fighter. So Fox single-handedly stripped Sullivan of the American title. He gave it to Kilrain and called it the world title. He could do it. He was the only guy in charge of it, and he just did it. Well, the people of Boston got very, very upset, so they pooled their money, $8,000 in 1887 money to make him a belt. We have one of the only copies of it right there, right up in front. Now, the original one we're going to see in October. I contacted the Smithsonian. They're going to pull it out for us to go down and actually take a look at it because we are the Hall of Fame. Isn't that cool? And then what happened from after that? After he stripped him, Kilrain then again re-challenged later on, and by this time Sullivan was an alcoholic. He couldn't walk very well. Needed the aid of crutches. In fact, he was so bad the doctor told him to go see his father because he wasn't going to live much longer. So he did. But then a few months later, and I've got a copy of it over there in the Hall of Fame, he signs an agreement to go and fight Kilrain. And all his buddies say, "What are you doing? You can't even walk, Johnny. What do you think?" "Well, I'm out of money. I need money. Hire me a trainer." So they hired him a trainer. The trainer outdrank him. So this isn't working. They said, "Please pull out. You're going to get killed." Well, in stepped then Belfast's own William Muldoon. Undefeated Greco-Roman wrestler his entire life. So good that later on he could pick the next predecessor of all the field. They didn't have to fight off for it, wrestle off for it. Later on, he even became the first commissioner of boxing in New York State, 1921 to 24. But to come back, so he said he was a guru. He was the first one that believed that proper training would make a difference in fighting. So he said, "Let me take him back to my little old barn in my little place in Belfast, New York, and I'll train him. I want to get him away from the limelight, the distractions, and the wild women." Well, it was Belfast, so he didn't get away from the wild women. But they brought him here. And he absolutely did not want to do any kind of exercises at all. First week he laid in bed. Finally he got him out, took him out 15 miles on a horse, dropped him off, and told him to find his best way back. He came in at 260 pounds. Within 6 weeks he was down to 195. That was too light, so Muldoon put pound back on. He fought at 210. He was a 5-1 underdog going into the fight down in Richburg, Mississippi. That's an hour away from where we fight now. I've been to that site, been to both sites. And when he took his robe off, it was even and then quickly went into his favor. And you'll see the actual photographs of that fight. It's the first fight ever photographed. And they came out beautiful. And there we have them all in the barn for you to see. Well, he went on to win. Actually, Muldoon said, "If he loses, I'll take nothing." He wanted to make a name for himself as a health guru. If he loses, I'll take nothing. If he wins, I'll take $10,000. I've done the mathematics on the computer. That's $278,000 in today's money. That was half the purse. The purse was $20,000. So Sullivan wins outside in 104-degree weather. 2 hours, 16 minutes, 75 rounds. It was, you know, Muldoon cut him off of alcohol too. And the funniest story that I like is that, you know, back then they used to spike the water between rounds with whiskey and to deaden the pain. But he knew that he had weaned him off it, so they couldn't do that. But after the 43rd, Sullivan threw up violently, and Kilrain called for that to be over with, and he turns to, no way, I'm going to continue on. And he went on to win. The doctor stopped it after 75. The statement was, if Kilrain goes any longer, his head will come off of his shoulders. I've seen that after just 2 rounds of modern bare knuckle boxing. And so he said, the seconds, they asked the seconds, weren't you afraid after the 43rd round when he threw up violently? Because I guess you claimed that you spiked it. Yeah, we spiked it. Weren't you afraid that the fight was over? And they said, no, we know Johnny. He threw up the water and kept down the whiskey. So that was all set. And that's the story of how Sullivan came here and then went away, and why the barns sat here. They sat here on church property for 130 years, basically locked up. When we got them, they were in disrepair. The ceilings hung down to about, in one of the rooms, down to about your eyes. The floor was buried in mud. It was all rotted. There was 14 cats living in it. And we actually moved it off the church property to where it's more accessible. And like I said earlier, the best compliment you could say is when you look at it is that doesn't look like you've done anything, Scott, because we want it to look just the way it was when he was there. And what I'm so excited about, not only showing you that you've never seen it before, but for the past 2 months, I've been working on a room that no one has ever seen. It's the boxing room. And I want you to see it. Your group is going to be the very first. So that's the quick story of Sullivan here. And right after the awards here, we're going to go over, I'm going to give you a tour, go right through it. I think you're going to like it an awful lot. So what I want to do is start out with our awards. We'll fly right through them. I ask you that when you do talk, about 3 minutes or so. We did have one person one year talk 45 minutes. He came up with 7 or 8 pages, and that was a little long. But so about 3 minutes, 3 minutes to 5. Can you do that, Jerry? Can you do that? Yeah, you're gonna have to cut that speech back. Well, Joe and I have got a program going through the Police Gazette, and it's Pioneer Memberships. And what it is to invest in Belfast. What we do is we offer a membership. It's a $500 membership. For that, you get as a gift, you get a medal like what the fighters get. That's for numbers 10 and up, and then the numbers 1 through 10 or a little bit more. Number 1 has a shamrock on it and a diamond set in sterling. And along with that, you also get 5 years admission free to this. So it's a pretty darn good deal. Joe, would you like to say a word for that?
So the one thing that I'll just add to that is, so we have a book where we record all the boxers, the medallions they receive, and the numbers that's assigned to them. The Pioneer memberships, the recipients of those memberships will be recorded in that as well. So kind of lives on forever alongside the boxers. So that's really all I have to say. If you have any more questions about it, just please feel free to let me know.
Help me along. You got that right there. We got announcement number 13. He's going to go to Bobby, but he's not here.
Yep, so number 13, Bobby Eisenegger was not able to join us. His wife ran into some issues that were very serious, and he had to was not able to attend. So we're going to make sure that he receives that. Right. So, Dave, can you come up here and join us? David, yes, David has number 11 for those of you that couldn't hear.
This is Belfast on one side, Belfast, New York, and Knuckletown, USA on the other. Thank you for your support.
Number one, probably the prettiest medallion you're going to see is Scott Atherton. Scott, you wouldn't... Scott. Thanks, brother.
Great, thank you, folks. Thanks for the support. And if anyone else is interested, just see Joe, and he'll help you out. He'll help you out with that. Another award that we have, and it's one that we just came up with, is what I call the President's Award. And I don't give it out very often. And the President's Award, in this case, and I want them to tell a little bit of their story. They started out as just going around and leaving flyers at various events and meeting boxers outside and trying to build their publication. But for 35 years now, the USA Boxing News, I believe they'll tell you, they are in 40 different nations, I believe. They'll clear it up for me. They are all over the world. And I would like to give my President's Belt Award to Alex and John Ronaldi. Would you two please come up? And they do not know they're doing this. Just like all the other awards we give out at the events, I made them myself. I personally made this as a one-of-one. This is the Hall of Fame Cup. If you take a picture, I want you to tell your story a little bit. They are very, very supportive of us. They put ads in their publication for us all the time. They don't ask for anything in return. Boys, would you say a few words? You know something? Here you go.
Oh, I can't thank you enough for such a wonderful award. This is just unbelievably gorgeous. You know something? We're boxing fans like everybody here. And when we started our publication, we thought there was an opening there for a publication that was meant for fans. That really dealt with fans, not some writer who thought he was above everyone else or that he knew more than the fans did, when that's really not the case. You have fans in here that I've just been speaking with people who are pretty good historians that could actually write books and actually know their stuff. And that's the type of clientele that we dealt with. We dealt with the fans' perspective on boxing, the love of the sport, and how wonderful the sport is. People fail to realize when baseball and all these other sports were that blacks and minorities weren't able to do, guess what sport they were able to do? Boxing. They're able to compete at high levels. That's what made the sport wonderful. Joe Louis was champion when there was nobody playing Major League Baseball. John L. Sullivan, granted, he might not have defended his title, but there were still people earning a living as top-notch fighters. Boxing has catered to every size, every type of person from any country than any other sport in the world. And to get this belt is incredible because what Scott Burtis did, he made this town, which is so memorable. You know, the Kilrain Sullivan fight is Ali Frazier's super fight. It's the biggest fight of all time. It's on that level. And thanks to Scott Burt and the wonderful crew here, it's still coming alive. People are still remembering of it. And I can't thank you enough. I can't thank everybody for showing up here. This is a wonderful place. It's great for boxing history. And here's my brother. And thank you very much. And we have been covering boxing for 37 years now. We can't thank the community enough. The boxing community is wonderful, from the fighters to the trainers to the cutmen to the doctors to the press, and especially people like Scott Bird, who has really done something wonderful here. Thank you very, very much. Thank you.
Let's see, what I want to talk about now a little bit is what's back here, and this is what is on the plaque. It says, in the spirit of John L. Sullivan versus Jake Kilrain, Bare Knuckles GOAT, meaning, if you don't know what that means, greatest of all time, and that's why it's got the GOAT on top of it, recognizes significant historical fights. Now, I have a huge positive weight on my shoulders, and that is that Richard K. Fox was 130 years ago the first person in charge of the Police Gazette, and I'm the second. So I have to make sure that what I do serves that history. And what we have done is that our committee got together and we chose 2 fights to recognize in modern times that should be listed in the most significantly historical fights of all time. And there's 2 of them, and this first one was in 2018, and it was at the very first production that Dave put on, and it is listed over here on the left, and it's when Joey Beltran versus Tony Lopez. And if you saw that really made the mark that bare knuckle boxing is here. And Bill Clancy, you were the referee of that. Would you say a few words about that fight and what? Because I think I know going in you were wondering about bare knuckling, and then did that fight put it over the top?
Yeah, I caught a lot of grief, still catch a lot of grief from the boxing community because I'm refereeing bare knuckle. Dan's catching it from the UFC, Wayne's catching it from the boxing world. So when Dave asked me if I would come on board and referee, I had to think about it. I didn't have to think long, but I said that if this thing takes off, which I thought it would, I'd like to be a part of it and be a part of history. So I agreed to do it, and Dan and I got to work in Wyoming, and thank you, sir, for allowing us to come into Wyoming. So I get lucky. I didn't know it at the time. I was going to be very lucky. I get to referee these 2 big heavyweights. And they didn't like each other. They really didn't like each other. And it was no fake hype. They just didn't like each other. And to watch 2 guys the size of Dan Murgliata get in there and beat the living hell out of one, and they beat the living hell out of one another. They really did. Nobody took a backward step. A lot of blood. And man, every time the round ended, it was like, what's going to happen next? There's no way this thing's going to go the distance. But it did. And it was the fight of the night. And again, this is our inaugural event. And I was just very, very pleased to be a part of it because it truly was a barn burner. And it really incented the other fighters that were on that card to give it all their best. And it was a great fight card. And then we ended up going down to Mississippi, and this big guy right here is going to talk in a second because, boy, he had the best fight ever. So for a very short period of time, I had the best one. Competition's on. But it was an awesome fight. If you didn't see it, it was an awesome, awesome fight, and I was just very proud to be part of it.
Thanks, Bill. And the other fight that he was talking about was the Artem Lobov fight versus Jason Knight. And I tell you, we sit right next to the ring, and man, what unbelievable. I glanced left, I glanced right, Joe is there, everybody's on their feet. It's just amazing. The 2 fighters are going at it, and they're just staggering. And the thing you got to remember, and I remind people of this who say, oh, bare knuckle fight, I don't know. Those guys get in there and live for that. Right, Travis? Right? You get it, that's where, right? Sheena, AJ, that you want to get in there and fight. You're not going in there just to not fight and walk away and not get hurt. That's part of the game. That's what these guys love. They love to get in there. They love to do something and have the crowd go nuts. Dan, you refereed this one, and the image that comes back is the last round. They come up, you bend over, and you look at them, and you smile, and you just go, okay, let's go. Can you talk just a minute or so about it, Dan?
Thank you. Yeah, that was a great fight. I think even up till today, that's probably the best fight that I've ever watched or been a part of. And sometimes when you referee fights, you kind of get into the fight emotionally. Like you can't help not to. You see a good punch, like, they're moving and you're watching everything. And watching that fight and being a part of it, I don't know if it was ever going to get beat. I didn't see the Sullivan fight back in the day, but these two kids went out there. They didn't like each other, like Bill said. They didn't like each other at all. I was told before the fight, Dave came up to me and said, Dan, do not let them fight before you say knuckle up. He goes, because these guys don't like each other. So I told them both. I said, listen, in that ring, I'm the boss. I don't care how hard you want to fight, that's okay, but when I say stop, stop. And they both looked at me and said, okay, but one of them was like, well, I don't like him. I said, it's okay. Take it out on his face when I say go. And he did. I think one of them had 11 cuts on his face, if I'm not mistaken. A couple times I brought the doctors in, and to show what Dave does that's great for the sport is he hires the best that he can get. And he hired Stitch that night to do cuts, like he always does. And I'll tell you what, Stitch saved that fight because a lot of cutmen, most cutmen would not have been able to let those guys continue. 77 stitches. Yeah, it was an amazing fight. If you haven't seen it, try to look it up. Try to really take a look at that fight. I was afraid it was either going to make or break Bare Knuckles because the people that don't know the sport, they just see blood and they think it's barbaric. This is disgusting. The people that know the sport realize these are stitches. These guys are okay. You know, they're throwing more body shots than head shots because they don't want to break their hands. And you know, the intelligent fans know this is a good sport. It's going to continue to grow. It's going to continue to be bigger and bigger. They're going to outgrow this church. You're not going to be able to have a Hall of Fame in this church anymore in a few years because you're just going to outgrow it. Scott, you do a great job. But I know I'm supposed to be talking about that fight. So that fight, you got to watch it. If you get a chance, check it out. I went over my 3 minutes of time. I apologize.
Thanks, Dan. I don't know if David's been thinking about it, but I'm waiting, and I talked to Joe about it. I'm actually waiting for there to be a knockout before the bell. Because when you say knuckle up, they can hit, and because of human error of having to start it, that little bit of delay, could there be a knockout before the bell actually goes to start? Dave, would you comment a little bit on the two fights?
When we started this company, Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship, we wanted action, we wanted entertainment, we wanted to give the fans the best that we could possibly give them. And the ironic thing about the Joey Beltran-Tony Lopez fight was, if people know what on television how it works, is that was actually a swing fight, which means that if the other fights went short, that fight was going to make TV. And I went in the back to the producer, I said, hell no, that fight is on TV. We are making that fight happen, make it happen. These two guys hate each other, it's going to be a great fight. I did not know it was going to end like that. One of the best fights that I've ever witnessed up to that point. And as putting all this time and effort into trying to make this happen and being able to sit there at ringside and actually be a fan, and I was just like, I was pinching myself like, this is what I dreamt of and this is what they're giving us. And I have to really take my hat off to Bill Clancy because a lot of people thought that fight should have been stopped because of the cuts. And we talked beforehand, as I talked to all the officials, and I said, this is a blood sport, meaning they're going to get cut, they're going to get small cuts, they're going to get a lot of them, but they're not going to get the brain rattle, and they're not going to get really the kind of head trauma that boxing and MMA get. So because of that, I say these fights have to go. You have to give the fans what they want, and Bill did a fantastic job. So really, I take my hat off to Bill for letting that fight go on. And then we go over to April 6th of 2019, which probably one of the top 3 fights I've ever witnessed myself live. And Dan did the same thing. He could have caught some slack because there were plenty of times that fight could have been stopped had it been for not an experienced referee to be in there. And so that fight was actually the one where you're looking for a fight to help your promotion and help the company and actually help the sport turn the corner. And that was our fight. Artem versus Jason Knight turned the corner for us and led us into what we did June 22nd with Paulie Malignaggi and Artem Lobov and what we're going to be doing here in the future. And I take my hat off to Dan for letting that fight go on and living up to his expectations. But it was just amazing to be able to be a part of those 2 classic fights, which Joey Beltran, Tony Lopez was runner-up for Fight of the Year in 2018. Being a brand new combat sport and being runner-up with boxing and MMA was unbelievable. And I'm sure if any of these boxing writers don't make Jason Knight and Artem Lobov a runner-up or Fight of the Year candidate, I think they should retire from writing. But thank you so much, man. It's just been, it was great to really put those fights on, Scott.
Thanks, Dave. For those of you that I always question or not quite sure, bare knuckle, and one of the things that he said, let me just elaborate, bare knuckle fighting has been proven to be much safer. It's the safest combat sport out there. The gloves were invented actually to protect the thrower's hands, and so they didn't have to hurt their hands, so therefore they're going to throw a lot more and just wail away. Without them, you have to be very selective, very selective. And I gotta tell you, if Dave Feldman was born 130 years old earlier, you may never have seen glove. And this is the reason why. Back then, it was not timed. You did not win or lose a round. Last man standing. If Dave had been there, and we were using the rules where it was timed and judged at the end, it would be exciting. It wouldn't last 2 hours and 3 hours and more, and you probably never would have seen gloved boxing. So and now we're seeing that as people are starting to leave a little bit of glove boxing and come to bare knuckle. But thank you, Dave. Thanks, guys, for the comments on that. Yes, we've chosen those two fights as two of the most historical fights of all time in bare knuckle boxing. So the next award I'm going to give is going to be the Marie Backus Person of the Year Award, and I would like to ask Billy Backus to join me up here. I would also like to ask Gino and Jack and Bill Clancy, our last 3 Men of the Year, to come up and join us to help receive and give out the award for this year's Man of the Year. Marie was a wonderful lady, someone that she made a mark. When she walked into the room, the whole place lit up. And she died unexpectedly, and Billy has allowed me to honor her by giving out the Marie Backus Person of the Year. And the stipulations for that is very simple. It's my committee says, Scott, who in the past year has impressed you? Who might be considered an unsung hero? And it could be anybody. Well, that was a very easy answer. And if I asked the fighters to stand up and say words, they would talk forever about this man, how he will help them no matter what, whether it's to drive them to the store, whether it's to get tape for their ankles, whether they're missing a mouth guard, they need a ride to the hospital, whatever. I call him the fighter's friend, and very simple, 2019 Marie Backus Person of the Year, Mort Goldsmith.
Gino, you're out of here.
That's right. Yeah, that's good. Now more, starting last year, we started to give out rings for our Marie Backus Person of the Year. Bill received his, and I'd like to have him hand it to Billy Backus, and Billy, if you will give it to Mort. That'll work. What we have here for you, Mort, is it's a print of Sullivan in the Barns back in 1899, training right here in Belfast. And at the bottom, it has the Bare Knuckle Boxing Hall of Fame Marie Backus Person of the Year, Mort Goldsmith, caretaker of fighters. This is yours, sir. And yep, and our artist, Chris Guzman, is coming back up. And now, what we do for our paintings is that we have our inductee painting that he does, and that gets put into the Hall of Fame. And we would like to start to put our Person of the Year into the Hall of Fame permanently too. Chris has painted your portrait, and we would like you to, Chris, we're over there. We'd like you to sign it, and that'll go in the Hall of Fame permanently. I'll hold that for you. And then you can sign it right here, and people can take pictures of you signing it. There you go, Mort. Thank you so very much. Chris, wonderful job. Thanks, guys. Here you go, Mort. Congratulations. Yes. Oh, yes. Here you go. This is yours. And this is yours, too. And Paul, you would like to say a few words?
Yeah, do I really need the microphone?
No.
Wow. Because I gotta go to my notes here. There's not many nuggets here. There's not gonna be a lot here. But my go. Also, I want to thank the Bare Knuckle thank everyone for what they've done. Not just what they've done for me, they've done for the sport, the talent, and everything. I want to thank this man right here, this son, for allowing me to have the opportunity to join them and do what I love to do. Confucius once said, a man who enjoys his job and has worked with the day is all. That's the end work. I may be exhausted at the end of the day, but I am. I absolutely love what I do. I'd like to thank this young man right over here, Gary Fans, and I've known this guy for probably 30 plus years. We're talking about this the other day. And I kind of got away from combat sport for a little while, and this guy got back. I'm sure once you do this, I'll do that. I think I'm going to call that. And he introduced me today, and they go off there. So I appreciate it. I'd like to thank most of all each and every fighter, the ones that are here and the ones that aren't here. They know me, I know them. And I
Folks, neglected to introduce somebody that's very, very important in my life, and someday he will probably be center ring, being the next Police Gazette representative and Bare Knuckle Boxing Hall of Fame representative. I'd like to introduce to you my youngest son, Drew. There's in the doorway over there. We're going to start to break them in, Dave. We're going to start bringing them in and getting some blood on them and letting it go for there are big. Before I start giving these out, and then we'll run right through them, I just want to point out two things in particular. Every year we get some various cool stuff in. 2 years ago we got this. This came right directly from the John L. Sullivan family itself. This was made specifically for John L. Sullivan in 1888. And this was made representing his 1888 fight against Charlie Mitchell. So we acquired that right from the family, which is wonderful. So I want to take a picture of that. And the other thing that we acquired that I'm ecstatic about is this box. We got this just a few weeks ago, this box. And it's greatly significant. On the bottom of it, I got it from a gentleman that said, you know, I don't know anything about this, but on the bottom of it, it says Corbett versus Sullivan, 1895. But that's not the year they fought. He said if it was the year they fought, that'd be worth an awful lot of money. Well, I thought it was something that we needed to have. So what I did is because I looked at the date and I thought it was significant. And back then what they would do is they would fight, and he fought Corbett in 1892 in the very first glove match and lost. But in 1895 they had an exhibition, the exact date and month and the date that are on the bottom of it too. So this piece right here was at the Corbett-Sullivan exhibition fight in 1895. Do you know what it is? Isn't that cool? It now belongs to the Hall of Fame, appropriately. For the inductions that we have several groups, and the Rochester Boxing Hall of Fame sponsors the Pioneer Group every year. And the Pioneer groups that we're inducting, the folks, actually the Pioneer is now modern, so I should say the older Pioneer. We're inducting Jack Havland, Tommy Warren, and Ike Weir. They're in your programs. And they're from 1888. They were the first, second, and third ever Police Gazette World Featherweight Champions. So they're being inducted. And the referees, the Pioneer referees, are John Fitzpatrick. John Fitzpatrick was the 1889 referee of the illegal John L. Sullivan fight. And believe it or not, Bat Masterson is getting inducted also. And Bat Masterson was the timekeeper. Now the modern referee inductees is a great trio. And the first one to be inducted is Wayne Spinola. Come on up, Wayne. Congratulations on this way. The statue is of William Muldoon. William Muldoon invented the medicine ball in 1876. He is the Sullivan's trainer. And this year we have something very special, because this is the first year where it has been legal. So to commemorate that, every inductee is getting a large Hall of Fame induction ring. And I'll give you the, this is it right here. You can see the size of it. It's got the Hall of Fame emblem on the front of it. And their name is on the side of it. And referee, it's got a fist. And what I think is really cool, it's got the New York State symbol outline and a diamond right where Belfast is.
I'll say something. He's Italian, he's not talking.
And the next referee that I can't match what Chris said out of memory of all the accolades that Bill Clancy has had over the years and all the fights that he's done. I'll just simply say, my friend Bill Clancy.
Real quick, again, Brian, thank you very much for being the inaugural state to welcome this great sport. As I said a few minutes ago, I'm still catching grief from the boxing community, but they can kiss my ass. Thank you.
Let's see what we got. The very first state. I mean, think about that. If you had a conversation and told Dave, I got 30 minutes to talk to you about getting a state to legalize the sport, couldn't get it in 30 minutes. No way, no way. How thankful we are all here because the state of Wyoming, and appropriately the Wild West, takes a shot and says, we'll try it. We'll try it. From Wyoming, the chairman of the very first state to legalize it. Now, this is not legal, the last legal fight since Sullivan fought. There was never a legal bare knuckle boxing fight. Never. Until last year, Brian Pedersen. Brian, would you come up and see it? There we go.
If I don't post it, it didn't happen. He follows me, he knows I'm freaking posting. I wanted to just say that why this is important is that it was industry driven. I was a state legislator from 2004 through 2012, and in 2012 we created what is the world's only MMA only commission. We don't regulate the sport of boxing because the industry didn't want it, but in 2012, MMA was running to regulation. They wanted to be in every state, they want to have a foothold, and what's important is that it's the fighters who wanted their work recognized. They're putting in the blood, putting in the money, putting in the time, and then nothing counts if you're in an unregulated state. So I was watching the McGregor-Mayweather fight in my backyard. We have a big screen, 15 feet across, 8 feet high. I have 100 people over in the yard. We watch everything in there. And we had about 30 fights in 7 years in Wyoming, bare knuckle, legal, but not sanctioned and regulated. And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking about 3 glasses of Chardonnay in, and I turned to my friend and I go, you know what we should do? And we put it out there and we started talking about maybe we should be regulating this bare knuckle stuff and make it safe for the fighters and help the promoters. And all of a sudden, we get a call from Dave Feldman. He says, you guys really thinking about doing this? And I said, yeah. So we put it on the radar out here, and we did. And went forward. Mr. Feldman was the very first promoter to get us there. In June, we had everybody come up. We trained to make sure we had the best officials, best cutmen, best thing, because it's that important to do it right when you do it. And that's why we're proud to be home of the only statute that recognizes bare knuckle fighting, codified in its own chapter. And I'm proud to be here today, and thank you. And when you say bare knuckle town, when we're recognizing everybody, it really is a town. And I thought that was really cool that everybody is involved in this, and I think that's really amazing. So thank you all so much, and thank you for hosting my family.
The second state to legalize was Mississippi. We have a special place in our heart for Mississippi. We consider it the fight state that made Sullivan. If you go down there, there's the places you can go to or where he fought. Like I say, it's 3 miles away from the Coliseum. The vacant land's for sale. You want to go to the circus tent? I don't know. And then about an hour away is where he fought to kill Rain, and they have a statue. They have a plaque there. We went there as we were waiting for the fights to come around last time we were there, and we took the belt, and oh my goodness, there's a restaurant there called Sully's. Oh my goodness, you thought we had brought them the Holy Grail, and they're a small town. We did, and they all posed for pictures. They all wanted to know about the Hall of Fame. They all know about BKFC, what's going on, and it's quite welcoming. So we wanted to honor and induct the Board of Commissioners in Wyoming, the Mississippi Athletic Commission, represented by their chairman, John Lewis.
Thank you so much, Scott. I can't thank Scott enough for what he's done. Look at this. This turnout's beautiful. One of the main people I want to thank is my wife, Alita. She's been a big part of me in this. She's been with me through all of this. And last night we got to celebrate our first anniversary and our birthday at the Belfast Theater. This fight game, bare knuckle, I got to give a lot of thanks to Bill Clancy for this. Bill calls me on the phone, says, hey, you need to check out this show I'm going to watch. I'm going to referee. It's bare knuckles in Wyoming. Dave Feldman's doing it. I spoke with Dave about 10 years earlier about doing it. And it took about 2 fights into it that I says, how do we sign up? So the biggest concern as a commission was, how do we implement this without having every promoter on the planet doing the show? Because, this is a game that I see it needs real heavy regulation, because you have massive amount of cuts. It's one, if it gets out of hand, it's gonna mess it up for everyone. So we take pride into having a top level of promotions in our state. Dave Feldman's our only one so far. We'll have others, but to date, he has done a jam-up job with his game. It's going to keep going further and further and higher. So thanks, Dave. Thank you, Bill. And Bill, I got to tell you, I'm not going to utter the words you said a minute ago up here because that little boy spoke his first word over there, man. That's his first word, just came out to us. But anyway, thank you, everybody. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you so much. And it's over there. Yeah. The one thing that John mentioned, and I got to tell you, Belfast. Again, we are bigger than you think that we are, really, in this game. I think you're starting to get the idea that Belfast is very important in bare knuckle boxing. And if you look on the front of your programs, what you can see is a feather in your cap. Also, on the very front cover, at the bottom, it gives all the rules, the history of the rules. And it says, rules of boxing. Broughton's rules were in 1743. London Prize rules, which was bare knuckling, is in 1838. The Marquis of Queensberry rules, which is loved, 1867. And then John contacted me and said, we'd like to have the Hall of Fame to write the rules for Mississippi to go by. So they call them the Burt's Rules of Engagement. So we're very, very proud of that, and Belfast should be very proud of that too. The next one, if Chris can help me again. It's kind of funny that he's actually here, because every main event, everything that's going on, he's usually out in the back building a ring. Doesn't get a chance to see anything. You know, I said, hey, Dean, did you see that weigh-in? No, I was out here trying to tell Alexis and Tyler what to do again. The inventor of the squared ring, which really is very important, because when he and Dave talked about it, you know, okay, let's just go into a regular ring and take their gloves off. Now we need something more than that, something that's going to catch their eye. And Gary said, I think I can do that. Gary Grant, 2019 inductee.
Well, first of all, thank you, Scott Burt, for doing this. This is awesome. I'm definitely dedicating this award to my father. That's why I kept my sunglasses on. My father was a guy who believed you could do anything. Dave's a guy who believes you can do anything. But I remember him saying to me once, we're working on something stupid in the garage, you know, this lawnmower. Like that, what makes you think you can fix that? And he says, one man built it. I should be able to fix it in my garage. I mean, that really had an impact on my life. And then fast forward to when we're doing all this stuff, to be honest with you, if you had asked me 2 years ago about bare knuckle boxing, I'd be like, I don't know what that is. I thought it was something that, you know, heard in a regular boxing, and it would never exist again. But I heard Dave talking about it. And if you don't know the story about me and Dave, I didn't like Dave. Now I love him, don't get me wrong, but I didn't like Dave, I didn't like his son, I didn't like his company, and that's the truth. And there's a long story behind that, but you know, I hear Dave talking about this bare knuckle dream that he has. Yeah, I did. Yeah. But anyway, he has this dream, him and his son, and I overhear them talking about it. And for me, it was more about the ring and the stage that this fight was going to happen on. And they believed in it so much that I remember thinking, a year from now, I'm going to be watching this on TV, and I'm going to wish that I got involved. Because whether I built this or someone else built it, it was happening. There was no doubt about that. That's how I know this company's going to succeed and go to the stars, because they believe in it so much. And I just wanted to be part of it. And they had some ideas, and I had some ideas. kicked them around back and forth, and Dave Jr. is great with the graphics on the computer, and when it actually, the things that I was thinking, he was emailing me pictures of. I'm like, this is going to happen, So, of course, I want to thank Dave for bringing me aboard. If I'm not the luckiest man in this room, then that title doesn't exist. I'm sorry. But Alexis and Tyler, you alluded to them. They're kind of like little cult figures that run around. They couldn't be here today. But yeah, I fire them once a week. So I'd like to thank them. And there's another guy who helped us out, Bernie. My buddy Bruce, he's over there by the door. He did all the welding and put the ring together and stuff. And of course, Dave Jr. And thank you everybody in Scott. I remember when this project first came up, Googling bare knuckle boxing online, because again, I knew nothing about it. And just looking at the circle and why they have the circle and why they fought the circle and all the history, and that really weighs on my mind a little bit and stuff. And like I said, when we started putting this together, I had no idea how we were going to do it. I just knew that I wanted to do it. If they asked me, I thought about this or that, I'm like, yeah, we can do that, we can do that. And most of the time I was thinking in the back of my head, we're going to build this out of steel, we're going to cover it with pull floaties, and they're going to love it. And when it finally came together in Wyoming, one thing that a lot of people don't know, we built the frame in Plymouth, Pennsylvania, and we shipped it to Wyoming, and then everything else shipped in around it. The ring was never together until Friday, the day before those fights. And the guy's out of his mind. That's how he got so far in life. There's no way that any of this should have worked. Everything we're talking about here today is about impossible dreams and impossible stuff. And so thank you all for having me, and thanks, Dave. Appreciate it.
Over to here, and let's get that one, and that one, and that one. There is really and honestly no face as the third man in the middle of the ring any more well known than Big Dan Murgata. Congratulations, Dan. I'm honored that you're here. I'm honored to present you with this award. You're part of the class of 2019. You will forever be in bare knuckle boxing history.
Well, me again. But Scott, thanks very much for everything. Dave, you running this event, we wouldn't be here. Bare knuckle boxing was around before you, but you did everything to make this all possible. Scott, this guy's the most passionate guy I've ever met in my life about anything. Not just the sport. He's very passionate about this. And because of him, we're all here. I just want to say thank you. My beautiful wife's sitting there trying to take his picture. She's probably taking a picture of herself. She's terrible with the camera. But anyway, that's my better half. And this does mean a lot, though. Thank you very much, Scott. Appreciate it.
Yeah. It took over 130 years to represent the belt of the American champion heavyweight that John L. Sullivan had. Just think about that for a minute. 136 years, and it just stayed dormant. And then there was A.J. Adams, our first Police Gazette American champion. A.J.? AJ, this is your championship induction ring, and I want to tell you something. There is no bond any closer than a fighter and his coach. Your coach purchased this for you. I know you didn't know that.
First of all, I want to. All right. First of all, I want to thank my mom, my wife. They're my biggest supporters. They've been with me since I started my MMA career in 2007. They haven't missed a fight, and if you've seen me fight Bare Knuckle, you've heard them screaming in my favor. I want to thank Dave. This is huge. I've been with this from the beginning, going back to the tryout in Philly. I slept in the airport when I got to Philly. It was either pay my light bill or hop on a flight to Philly. I bought a one-way, slept in the airport, caught the train and the bus to the tryout. I did my thing. Here I am now. I'm the champ. Scott, I gotta thank you. I didn't expect all of this. This is huge, and you've been waiting for your opportunity. You got it, and you really showed out today. Thank you, man. One last thing, I created some shirts that say F everybody. Some people found them offensive, but the meaning behind it is for, like Dave, he's been pushing for this for 10 years, and he's been turned down 39 times, was it? 28, I'm sorry. I gave him some extra credit. But he kept pushing for it. They kept telling him no, and he kept saying, you know what, F you, I'm gonna try it again, and it worked. Here we are. If you got anybody that's ever told you no in life, F them. F everybody that ever told you no in life, and keep pushing for what you're dreaming for. Thank you.
I gotta tell you, he'll tell you that he's the best in the business. And you know what? Jeff Houston is the best in the business. There's no ring announcer any better than him. There's one guy that's got better shoes than him. Oh yeah, but I think we've got a new contestant because Brian Petters, did you check his out today? Oh my gosh. There is not one inductee that I couldn't use this next phrase with. I want to introduce to you my friend, and all of them are. This time, it's Jeff Houston. Here it is. Let's do the honors, Chris. And sit here. Jeff, William Muldoon. Congratulations. Would you please say a couple words? Anything you want.
Thank you very much, Scott. You know what, the first time that I was talking to Scott and he was talking to me about the induction to the Bare Knuckle Boxing Hall of Fame, I said to myself, it hasn't even been a year in this sport and there's no way that I deserve an honor so prestigious. But then Scott tells me it's really more about the history that has been made, the fact that you were the first ever ring announcer to host a legal state-sanctioned bare knuckle event. That puts you in the history books whether you're 1 day in or 10 years in. And he's absolutely right. And I think that that history is relevant because of what we've created with Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship. We've created something that is not only taking the sports world by storm, but it's giving athletes an incredible opportunity to become stars in their own right. And as you know, Scott, I've said several times that I believe bare knuckle fighting is a wave of the future created by the tide of the past. And we've seen this past on display here. We've seen it for the past day. Scott, I got to tell you, you have done an amazing job at everything. Before I keep talking, one more time for Scott Burke, please. Scott, what you've done, this is literally a resurrecting to modern form, and I can't thank you enough for being just a very small cog in the turning wheel, so I thank you for that. I'd certainly like to thank, first and foremost, my beautiful wife, Brandy. She is my rock. She is the reason that I'm even on this mic. There have been a couple of times that I wanted to put the mic down in the past, and she said, there is no way in hell that you're going to put the mic down, because if you do, then you'll be home all the time and I'll have to listen to your shit. So that's not happening. Next up, definitely want to thank Mr. David Feldman, man, for giving me such an incredible opportunity to be on the ground floor of something so special. And of course, for busting my balls every single opportunity he gets. But I'll tell you, Dave, I have sharpened my teeth on your ribs. So I thank you, sir. Thank you very much. And you know, it's just amazing again. I can't get back to what the fighters had put into this and what they meant to this modern resurrection of the sport. Every single one of them that steps into the squared circle, they know, number one, that there's going to be a degree of ridicule because there are so many people that don't understand the sport. So when you don't understand something, you know, you go against it, you lobby against it, instead of actually taking the time and intelligence to sit down, watch the fight, and realize that bare knuckle is the future, that it is a safer sport, and more importantly, that's the most entertaining fight that you could ever tune into. So for all of the bare knuckle fighters that are joining us today, and all of the bare knuckle fighters that have been with BKFC, I thank you very much. Scott, Belfast, thank you so much. Must I? No. All right. All right. Per popular from Knuckletown, USA, Belfast, New York, it's time to knuckle up!
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you very much. Before we get to the very last one, we also have honorary inductees. And honorary inductees are it's a special part of being inducted into the Hall of Fame. And in the Hall of Fame, if you provide a spotlight to Belfast, New York, to Western New York, we'd like to honor you. And I've been waiting for a special year to do that. And I thought with all of these folks here, this was the year. And we have several of them here, at least 4. And I'd like to have them all come up. Whether you were a coach, whether you actually fought. But our honorary inductees this year is from the I gotta make sure I get that right, 1990s, the Belfast Boxing Club. Would you boys come up? Come on right up here, guys. Mr. Heaney, are you still back there? If you'd like to join us, please. Now, folks, we're going to ask you to sign the glove. The glove will be permanently on display in the Hall of Fame. I've been told that these guys had a rough beginning, but by the time they were done, all the boxing clubs in the Belfast and Rochester area feared them. And I'll give every one of you a chance to say something if you'd like, and take the mic and pass it. Brian, here is the award. And we can do anything with that you want. We can display it in our office. We can display it at the library. Whatever you folks decide to do, we'll do it for you.
Thank you very much. I'm a man of few words. Thank you, and thank you, Scott, for doing all this for Belfast.
Thanks, Scott. Thanks for everybody that came all the way out to our little town. Mr. Heaney, of course, I was just speaking earlier about him. He was kind of the father of everything that brought boxing back to this area. Right across the street was only boxing gym 75 miles. It was a big deal, especially for some kids are good at baseball, or basketball. Some kids just want to fight. I was one of those kids, and by the grace of God, there was boxing in my town. And very thankful for that. Thanks, Mr. Burt, for all your work you put in. And I'm really excited about this future Bare Knuckle fight.
Again, I'd like to thank Scott for everything he's done. And at the time, my coach Brian got me out of jail. I was an angry young man and took it to the ring, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott, and thank everybody for being here. Actually, the birth of the Belfast Boxing Club came about as a result of another soul whose name was Brian from Buffalo. And Brian called me up and he said, I have your name with the Belfast Lions. And he said, this is the 100th year since Sullivan knocked out Kilrain. He said, I represent several boxing clubs in Buffalo, including Jackie Donnelly's club, and he said, we'd like to have a tournament in Belfast. Does Belfast have a boxing club? I said, no. And he said, I said, but we'll try to put one together. Well, the first year or so, we didn't do very well. But we were up against the city kids, from Rochester and Buffalo and so forth. But we determined after that first year that we would get Brian France involved and some of these other fellows. I was their teacher in school, and so I had connections with them, and we had several. Brian had a lot of experience in the service of boxing. And so he was our first trainer, and really it took off from there. We went from winning no bouts against other teams to all of a sudden winning bout after bout after bout across the state. And we were all so proud of this Belfast Boxing Club. We lasted 9 years, but eventually what happened was the crowds thinned. They started off with 1,000 in our Belfast gym, but they winnowed down to a couple hundred. And we just didn't have the money. But we did have the kids, and they made it a sensation. So I thank you all for recognizing them. Thank Scott for everything he has done, and I thank these guys for being part of the Belfast Boxing Club. Thank you.
Excuse me, you're in my shop. Yeah.
Thanks, guys. Thank you very much. Jeff, I was so impressed with your knuckle up that, and who wouldn't be, that I lost a little track of my thought. Jeff, when you get a chance, being the first announcer, would you please sign this and we'll permanently put it in the Hall of Fame. Now, I just heard Dave whisper to Christine, why am I last? That's because you're first in everything else. Guys, our 2018 Promoter of the Year, today is so much different than other times when we're around Dave. He's so busy, he's got his phone, 1 million messages, he's this or that. You almost hate to distract him, sometimes you've got to. It's just so nice to be able to not have an event and have Dave Feldman here the way that we really, really like him. And Dave, I couldn't be more happier that to induct you. You have done so much for the sport. You will permanently and forever be in the history books. Money comes, money goes, things happen, but you will permanently be a part of history. I'd like to introduce my friend Dave Feldman.
I just want to say thank you to everybody. Thank you. You thought you were getting off that easy. No, look, this is, I heard a lot of people up there say thank me. It's because of me. There is no I in team. I mean, truly there isn't. I wouldn't be here today without so many people's help. This is really more about persistence. It's about loyalty. It's about camaraderie. It's about chasing dreams. It's about so much more in life than being able to, we were able to create a new sport. Really, although it's a sport of the past, it is now the sport of the future, and we put a twist on it. And I think people are loving this. And tell you guys a little bit of a backstory. We got turned down 28 times with 28 different states before Brian Pedersen said yes. Kind of like the 28 times I asked Christina to marry me before she finally said yes. I'm a persistent person. Really, truly, I'm going to go up and down because I had a speech written and I don't need to write a speech. I mean, I know what's in my heart and I know everybody that helped me, and I'm going to say a little bit about a lot of people. First of all, I want to thank Scott Burt and Joe Cercio for really doing this and for carrying this on for so long and really chasing your own dream, because you knew someday this was going to happen. And I'm glad I was, the one to be able to help you guys with your dream. Thank you so much. Thank you, gentlemen. Really appreciate it. One more time, a great round of applause for Scott and Joe. So I'll start with the guy who really, without him, I wouldn't be here today. He made this possible. He made the conversation easy. We had that one conversation, and you said we're going to get it done, and we got it done. And we had roadblocks along the way, just like the 28 states that said no. We had speed bumps, we had sharp turns, and in everything that came our way, we navigated it and we made it happen. June 2nd, 2018 will forever be in the history books. Thank you, Brian Pedersen. I want to then say, the night before the fight, I got a text from John Lewis who said, I'm going to keep a close eye on this. I will be the second state. He told me 10 years ago, so you guys understand this has really been a long time in the making. He told me 10 years ago, I'll be the second state. 10 years later, he was the second state. And now Biloxi and Mississippi really has kind of been like a home away from home for us. And we have our next event coming up there August 10th. So thank you so much, John Lewis and your team in Mississippi, for believing in us. When I first met Christina, I told her we're going to have a fun ride. She had no idea the ride we were going for. Trust me, she had no idea. But it's so great to be here today when I started this dream and had all the turns and the roller coaster and all the goods and bads and all the speed bumps along the way, to be able to really sit here today and celebrate this great honor with my future wife. And I love you. Thank you for believing in me, and thank you for being here today. I've been, as everybody, it was great to hear AJ's story. He slept at an airport for the tryouts because it was either that or pay his electric bill. He saw the dream. He saw the dream. He followed me, believed in me. I mean, a lot of guys here today took chances. Dan, Wayne, and Bill, they all took chances because they very well could have been blackballed. They took chances. They believed in me. I mean, what an honor to have all these people believe in my dream and really to follow what I was doing. And I'm so humbled to be able to not only be able to create this, but to really, truly have the camaraderie and to meet great friends along the way. So whatever happens with Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship, whether it continues and surpasses anything in the future. I met some great people, and that will forever stay in my heart. And that's this guy here. I'm so glad because he cried before I did. Gary Grant, man. I mean, I came to him with this project. He didn't like me. He only didn't like me, though, I have to say, he didn't like me because he didn't know me. So, when I first met Gary, I didn't really like him either. And then when I got to know him, I really couldn't stand him. Truly, Gary is one of a kind. I mean, the guy never said no to me in anything I've ever asked him. We do a lot of different businesses. We have a food festival business. I said, you know, Gary built the Squared Circle, obviously. 3 or 4 different things along the way. It didn't work, and we found a way to make it work. Do you remember the best time I said the best picture we had is we're sitting on the bleachers in Cheyenne, Wyoming, and you were there, Brian, and we said, look at this picture of the ring, and look at the ring. We designed a picture a year, probably 6 months before the ring was actually built, and it was on a computer screen, and we were looking at the ring on top of it. It was identical. I mean, you did it. Thank you. Thank you so much. I said it's about chasing dreams, it's about camaraderie, it's about loyalty. So let me tell you a little bit about loyalty with at least 2 of my friends and Wayne as well. Wayne has been coming under some pressure about working for us with bare knuckle fighting because, you know, some people, it's perception, and in their perception they feel it's not the best thing in the world to put out there, and other people are just fearful of it. And that's why they're giving you guys problems and they're giving me problems. But I want to thank you so much, Wayne. You introduced me to some people and you're really trying to push us along the way. Bill, man, you've been with me since day one. We talked about this before we were going to start it. We did it together. You're at every single event, and you will be at every event until this goes out of business. Thank you. Let me talk a little bit about loyalty. Dan Mergliata, one of the top referees in the world in mixed martial arts, UFC, Bellator, you name it, he's been there. Commissioners, the president of the, I'm not going to name it. You know what, I am going to name it. Fuck him. Greg Serb, the president of the commissioner of Pennsylvania, blackballed everybody that had anything to do with me. Mike Mazzulli, the ABC commissioner, is now coming around, but told Dan, called him up and said, you won't work for me again if you referee bare knuckle fighting. Excuse my language. Dan said, fuck you. That's it, and he did it. Thank you, Dan. Other commissioners did the same thing, and these guys stood up. And again, that, like, to me, that makes me feel so great because you guys believed in me. You believed in what I was doing. You believe in where this can go. But I really would not have been able to do this without any of you guys here. I have Jeff Houston, the voice, man. I mean, I do break your balls all the time, and I love it. I love every second of it. I love making you feel uncomfortable. I love making you go like that. But at the end of the day, man, I wouldn't have any other guy in that squared circle than Jeff Houston, the best voice in mixed martial arts, in boxing, and now in bare knuckle fighting championship. I've got my man right here, Travis Thompson. I've known him for a long time. Travis has been a guy who I actually trained before. I actually sparred him before too. We don't want to talk about that. I don't want to hurt his feelings. He fought for me in boxing, he fought for me in mixed martial arts, and he fought for me in bare knuckle, and never once does he say how much or who. He just says when. So thank you, Travis, for being that fighter. Then we move on to the guy who really has star potential here, but that's why I said, where's your personality, Mr. H.A.? You can fight, now we need the personality. We're going to get the personality with your ability, and we're going to make you a star. And you have your opportunity on August 10th. You're fighting former UFC contender and really great fighter Chase Sherman. So it's going to be one hell of a fight. We're looking forward to that. Mort Goldsmith, thank you so much for everything you've done. You've helped out all the fighters, and I really appreciate everything you've done as well. Sheena, cut person, you worked the cuts for me, you fought for me, you sold t-shirts for me. This is what I'm talking about. But this is what I'm talking about. This is truly what I'm talking about. Everybody on this team, where there's no I in it, will do anything and everything it takes to make this thing successful. And that's why I take my hat off to every single one of you guys that have believed in my dream, that have helped me, and that have helped really this sport grow and this promotion grow. And thank you so much, Scott Burton and Joe. I'm truly, truly humbled to be here today in Belfast and accepting this honor. Thank you so much. And I saved this for last because this one usually makes me cry. So I saved it for last. My right-hand man, he couldn't be here today. He's actually working in our festival business so I can chase this dream. He's been there with me every step of the way, man. We took so many risks to get here, risks I can't even talk about. Like, so many risks that really were life-altering, that could have changed everything. We risked it all to get here today, and we're here today. And I would not have been here without my right-hand man, my fall guy, my wingman, and my son. I love you with all my heart, David Feldman. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you, Dave. That was one of the very, very, very first things that Joe and I recognized right off the bat. There wasn't one person in that entire organization that didn't pull for success, for the team. And we never heard anybody ever, did we, Joe, complaining about their situation or them. Everybody pulled for the team, and they still are, and that's why that organization, his promotion, will be on top for a long, long time. Every year, I'm very, very privileged to have my friend Chris Guzman do a painting. Usually, we induct 3, 4, 5. This year he calls up and said, "Did I see that email correct? 15 of them?" I said, "Yeah, we got to get them all on there." Yeah. He said, "Well, at least half of them or 3/4 don't have any hair. I'll save a lot of paint." Chris and I are good friends. We've known each other for over a decade. When we met in Canastota, he came up to me and said, "Hey, you know what?" I said, "What?" He said, "You need an artist." Okay. So then I talked to him later on, and here I am, just started. We just had the Barnes, and I didn't want to play too easy. He called me up and said, "Can I be your artist?" So I said, "You better send me some samples." I don't care what they were, but he is a great, great artist. And who is it that is your inspiration, Chris? Your artist that you tend to pattern? Leroy? Leroy Neiman. But Chris and I joke an awful lot. And we're good friends. Chris, I don't say thank you enough. What you do is always amazing. I do have something I wanted to give you, though, if you don't mind. Now, at first you're going to go, "What the heck is this thing?" It's a picture of Al Smith, who ran for president, I guess. And I know you're laughing. Why did I give him that? Do you know why I give you that? No. Oh, no. That's not it. I know. I talked to his wife, and I acquired this from the widow of Bert Sugar, one of your favorite all-time personalities. And she said, I told her what I wanted to do with it, and she said yes. And this was what he actually mixed his drinks and poured out of. Thank you, Chris, for everything you've done. Chris is going to unveil his painting this year, and I got to tell you, I haven't seen it either, and I'm always impressed. He would like is Sheena still here? Where did Sheena go? Give her a holler. Oh, she's on the phone. Off the phone. She would like the three fighters. He would like the three fighters to come up and help him unveil. Chris, I'll give you the microphone.
Someone several hours ago, like this morning, way before you guys came in here, accidentally broke the easel. So it was on a wing and a prayer, a little bit of duct tape and some spit, and that's what was holding it together. So I don't fault anyone for knocking into it. I knocked into it myself. I usually have a pretty cool little name for it. With 15 heads, I think it's safe to say this year should be called Scott Burt's Trying to Kill Me. But this year's painting with 15 heads is called We Are Legal Baby. So, so here we are. In the painting somewhere. I don't care where you put it, I don't care if it's big or small or where it is, but make sure it's there. So right here are the barns that a lot of you, if you haven't had a chance to go and view them, I'm sure there's a tour right after this. Right. If you were at the Ghost tour last night, you were in there, but you've got to see it in the barns. It's a totally different thing. So here are our barns. Here is Bat Masters, who was ringside in 1889. And I'm not going to go through all the names, so we would be here all day.
You see a prince?
I do have prints. If you had a moment for a 10-second commercial. Yes, I do have a canvas, these are cardstock prints, these are 20 bucks. And then I've got one canvas print left. This is a stretched canvas print. And I had two, and one has already been sold. There is a single one left. And that is. I believe it's sold, so. All right.
Chris also is done, I think I see it around the corner. Around the ring. For a different event, but I just want to show you his ability. He is known as the glove artist. Not the glove artist, but the glove artist.
With a capital.
All capital. PhD. And I'll put a plug in. His backlog, but he has so many orders for painting a loved one on a glove for special occasion, even for weddings, graduations, anniversaries, and they're amazing. His best compliment is kind of, what is that, a statement? No, it's not. It's all paint. So you can see, not only because of our true friendship, but of his true ability. Thank you, Chris. This will permanently be in the Hall of Fame for you. Yeah, Chris forgot to say it's $5,000 for the hell of canvas. But they've already bought it. Folks, I want to thank you for coming. It's been a wonderful day for Belfast. I do want to let you know we have merchandise for sale, and I got to tell you, just because in case you didn't hear it before, this is our only fundraiser we do during the year, only one, and all the money, 100% of it, goes to restore the barns and to buy the awards for the fighters throughout the year. We pay for that ourselves. We don't have a huge company backing us or anything like that. It is, as they said, our theme today could have been passion, because it's all the way around with everybody that's here. And I'll be over there in 5 minutes, and I'll give you a tour you will never forget about being where John L. Sullivan stood. We have a drawing right now, and I'll give it to Chris to take care of the drawing.
All right, check your tickets. This is for the red, white, and blue jersey right here. Reaching on in, finding the winner.